Okay, let's talk about the manually run workflow trigger. So this trigger seems very simple, but it actually can do a few things that aren't very intuitive. We are working to improve it, but for now, let me break them down for you. So let's click on select a trigger and let's select the manually run trigger. Now we're going to see this form. Let's ignore it for now. I'm just going to click save and update. And now let's connect it to our Slack, which I have over here on the right as a way to demonstrate that the workflow is running. So I'm going to select the workspace. I'm going to select this demo channel, and we're just going to run a test to make sure that it's connected. And there we go, test. Okay, now let's click the play button. But before you can click the play button, make sure the workflow is active by clicking this toggle, save it, and now click the play button and then click run. So we'll see the workflow ran and we got another test here. You can even see the execution. So if I click on that, we're going to see that the manually run and the send message to channel both ran without any problems. So let's go back to the workflow. And now let's make this a little better. Okay, we're going to click on the manually run trigger and we're going to add a form field. These are basically values that need to be entered before this can run. So I'm going to do add input. I'm going to select the text one and I'm going to say, I'm just going to call it message. And I'm going to make sure that it's required. And if I don't add anything, then it's going to default to no message was entered. Okay, you have to click the save and update. And now when I click on the play button, now there's this field right here. So it's the message field we just created, and no message was entered is set by default. So I'm going to clear that and I'm going to say hello. And now I'm going to run it. And we still saw test. So how do we get that? How do we get this message to go into the actual Slack message? We have to connect the value. So let's open this Slack action and let's go to the message field. Instead of typing out what we want, let's reference by clicking the plus button the message field from the manually run trigger. So now the message field from the manually run trigger is going to dynamically populate this message field. So let's do a save and now let's run it again. Or let's put hello and now we get a hello. That's how simple and how easy it is to use our manually run trigger. Now, some other things that you can do with this trigger is that when a workflow has this set up as a trigger, it enables that workflow to be ran by other workflows. So let's clear these fields really quick. And let's go to workflows and let's create another workflow. I was going to call it will call another workflow. You can do whatever trigger you want for this one. I'm just going to use manually run just for testing purposes. And I'm going to do flow control run workflow. So now the workflows I'm going to see are any workflow that has the manually run trigger as its trigger. So that manually run trigger demo workflow I created is an option here. If I went back to that workflow and I changed the trigger to like any other trigger, then it wouldn't show up here anymore. And this workflow wouldn't actually be able to run that workflow anymore. The other thing the manually run trigger does is it lets an agent call it. So let's jump back to the manually run and let's remember what it does. It runs it, then it sends a message to the channel. In this case, the manually run message doesn't exist anymore, but let's change that. Let's add it back actually. So the message is required. And then okay. Now let's save it. Let's jump back to the demo project and let's create a new agent called will run the Slack workflow. That's what I called it. Actually, I'm not going to give it any instructions. I'm just going to go to the workflows tab and I'm going to give this agent access to that the manually run trigger demo workflow. So now let's save it. And I'm going to say send the Slack message I don't think it's going to know that that workflow can do that, but let's just see. Okay, so manually run trigger demo. It ran that workflow, and then it said the Slack message has been sent successfully. And you can view the execution details here. If I look over here, hello, this is a test message sent via workflow. So if we look at the execution, we can see that the AI just put this message in. I didn't tell it what to message, so obviously it didn't know. I'm going to say, do it again, but say hello, enter. Now let's look over here. It said hello. So, and now it's just generating the response. But if we look at the details of that execution, it entered hello as the message. So those are the three things that the manually run workflow trigger can do. Let's recap. It allows the user to manually run it by clicking play. It lets another workflow run it as a sub workflow, and it lets you give the workflow to an AI agent so the AI agent can execute it for you, and the AI will enter the values of that form you created for you. I hope that makes sense. We're going to break it down in some more videos, but this is an overview of that trigger. Thank you.